In this chapter 3, we learn everything we need to read in a new dataset. This also means to use some visualization tools to look at the data and maybe find some problems or mistakes. Learn something about the different variable types in order to check that the reading in was all correct. And then at the end, compute the descriptive statistics. This is a general overview of how to deal with data. So we import the data, we have to tidy up the dataset, transform our variables, then visualize it and compute our models. And then if we have results, we can communicate them. So this chapter 3 is only about importing the data. And then you will see chapter 4 is about tidying up and transformation and chapter 5 about visualization. And here you can see the content of chapter 3. This is mainly, as I said, reading in the data. Then we have several steps to do that. And then ending up with looking at the variable types and computing descriptive statistics. So let's go to RStudio and open the R syntax file about the chapter 3. So the first step is always to make sure that you save the syntax file in the same folder where you have also saved the dataset. Second, you want to set your working directory to this folder. The way how to do it is to go to Session, set your working directories and to source file location. So you click on that and you can see that you get this link in the console. So we copy this link here and paste it into our syntax file. In the last chapter we have learned that we always have a function, and let's have a look at the function here. It's called setwd. The meaning is set your working directory and then comes the link to the folder where these files are. This is important for R also to save something, so everything will be saved there and it knows your data file is also there. Okay, the third point is now to read in your dataset. And the dataset you can download is marks_learning.csv. This is a simulated dataset about marks student got in an exam and the learning techniques they have used to prepare for this exam. I think it's always a good thing to look at the raw data as well. So let's do that first. So let's have a look at the dataset. First we can see in the first column we have the marks the students got, and then we have 4 learning techniques, and at the end a question about if they learned in a group or they learned alone. If you look at the data itself, you can see we have some empty cells, so it looks like we have some missing data, and then I can spot here a -99. Some of the missing has been coded as -99. I think it's always good to have a quick look at the dataset to know what I can expect. Okay, next we want to read in our dataset, and we look again first at the function read.csv. We talked about that. That's the function to read in a dataset, and then we add as an argument the name of the dataset. Because this is a name, we need quotation marks. And then on the left side we assign it to a new object which is called df, which means data frame. So let's run that and we can see nothing happens. And the next step is now that we want to look at the data. So let's start with edit df, and you can see if you have a window machine, they open up a window with the data. I enlarge it. So if you have a window machine, this works, and I use this all the time. The edit command seems to work only on Windows machines. So let's discuss first what we should look at, and then we find out a version for Macs. As you can see, it looks very similar to the raw data file. The only difference is that we have now, instead of empty cells, we have NAs. This is the way how we represent missing values in R, and A stands for not available. However, we also can see we still have the -99s because so far R just thinks this is a normal value. So if you have a Mac and want to look actually at the data, you can enlarge the environment, and then you can see here you have on the data you have df, And if you click on it, you can see there is a new window opening up. So we close the environment again, and then we can look at the data as well. So let's go back to our syntax file, and then let's run the next function, and in order to check the data set properly, let's run all the functions here together. And we can see the results from the head function, the first 6 rows, and the tails. We can see the names. We can see now the dimensions. So we have a data set of 200 participants, so 200 rows and 6 columns. And you can see all the variables are read in as numeric, except the last one that is an integer, which we'll talk about it later. So everything looks pretty nice. Next, we want to count how many missing values we have. So we have something interesting. You can see we have a function is.na, which seems to be nested in another function which is called sum. If we would run only this function, it would tell us for each cell is it true or false that we have a missing value. So let's just run this is.na function first. And you can see here in the console that we get mostly false but some truths, and truths are this kind of NAs. So that's not very helpful, so that's why I added another function which is just called sum. So sum up how many times it is true, and if we run that, we can see we get a result here which is 13, which means we have 13 missing values. As this is now for the whole data set, I added up another function, which is the apply function, because sometimes it's more interesting to know which kind of missing we have for each column or each variable, but we are not going into the details for this apply function. For us, it's just we can run it, and then you can see we get for each column the name of the column and how many missing we have in each column. But now we still have a problem. You remember? The minus 99 is a missing value, but we haven't told R, and this is a problem because R just thinks this is a normal number. So let's redo the read-in function. So what we can do now is to add an argument to tell R when we read in the dataset what the missing values are. So you can see we have the argument which we discussed before. Then I have added another argument which is called head equals true. The first row in the dataset are not actual values but name for the columns. And then you can see here I have now another argument, and this is an important argument which is called na.strings. So wrote equal and then quotation mark which is nothing in it. So if your missings are just empty cells, then this is a way how to write it. We just write quotation marks and nothing in it. Now the problem is, what do we do in our case? We have empty cells, but we have another missing which is 99. So how can we tell this to R? And maybe you remember the C function, the combine function. So what we can do is write C, and then in brackets we have the argument or empty cell, and the second argument is we have minus 99, and then we close both brackets for the C function and for the read.csv function. And this is the way how we tell R that now we have two missing values. Let's run this. And if we run this and save it in the same object, then the object has been overwritten. So this should be the new one. And let's run now the edit function again. Open this, and you can see what has changed is R recognizes now that the minus 99 become NAs. So this is exactly what we wanted. And now we check how many actually missing we have, and you can see totally we have 21 missings. And if you want to know for each row, we can use the second command. Sometimes I have seen that R doesn't read in all the variable names properly, especially the first one. So in this case, I show you how to relabel this variable. So remember our command names.df. If we run this, we can see R gives us the name for each variable. So the square bracket here means if I just add one number by default, I define which column I'm talking about. So what I do here is on the right side, I give on the quotation mark a new name. You can see originally it's with lowercase m, and now I changed it into a capital M marks. And I want to save it only for the first column. I put the 1 in the square brackets, and so that means save it as the name for the first column. Let's do that. And if I look at the results, I can see the name for the first column has changed from lowercase m to capital M. So before we can actually plot our data, we have to learn what downloading a new package means. Although R has a lot of functionalities, there is a way to extend the functionalities in R, and this is by using packages. And the package we want to download is the so-called psych package. There are two ways how to download packages. You go into Tools, Install Packages, and choose it here. You can write down the name. Or I think you can directly use the functions install.packages, and then again as the argument the name of the package in quotation marks. So you have to install it only once, and you can see if I do it, then it starts to download this package. You only have to install a package once. So now I put a hashtag in front of it, and you can see if I put the hashtag, then in my specification of RStudio it becomes blue. Blue means these are simply my annotations, and the reason why I want to not have it anymore as a command is if I run this script again, there is no need for me to install the package again. So if I want to use the psych package, I have to activate it. The way to do that is by using the library function. So I can say now library and then as the argument psych. Just to make you aware, here I don't need quotation marks anymore for the argument here in the library function. If I do it, you can see I get a warning message, and it says it was built under the R version 4.0.2, and I have installed the 4.00 version, I think. So it gives me just a warning maybe to update